All right, welcome back to another edition of Pure Picks. We're going to do the breakdown for UFC 294 today. We have Alex, my friend here from the Pure
Yes,
Pick Nation. And for all your Pure Pickers, we're in for a really good treat because this is the event that I personally been, circling. I know Alex has it too. And we're really getting ready to get some locks and hammering in those locks today. Might hear some Giga locks. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to it. Alex, anything you'd like to add about this event before we start off?
yeah, no, I definitely looking forward to this card. The Abu Dhabi cards are usually like always very stacked. Um, initially the main card had my favorite fighter on it, Charles Oliveira, but he had like a cut on his eyebrow, so they brought Volkan, but I actually think that might be a better fight. So yeah, really looking forward to this card.
Cool, cool. Well, let's just get started in terms of breaking down the card. Like you mentioned, this is going to be in Abu Dhabi this Saturday. I believe the start time is going to be prelims at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So, very early event for all of you day early birds. And yeah, man, this I think it's going to be a fun day. So, first fight that we have on the prelims, this is going to be a UFC debut for a very hyped fighter. His name is Shara Magomedov, and he's going against Bruno Silva. So it's classic UFC newcomer versus a vet. Um, First off, Bruno Silva, to go over his kind of profile, he's 23-9 right now. He is 2-3 coming off of that loss against Brendan All in Allen, where he got rear naked choked. He is Brazilian, 34 years old, 6 feet 74-inch reach. He's going up against Shara the Bullet Magomedov, 11-0, 5-0 in his last five. This is going to be his UFC debut in Abu Dhabi. He's from Russia and 29 years old, 6'2", and we don't have the reach for him yet, but I think that the reach is probably going to be around similar for this fight. For this fight, I mean, I think this is a really good way to start the prelims, right? I think that we're going to get to see a really hyped fighter. I've seen this guy on YouTube and Twitter. He's all over social media. This guy looks like fucking wild. Like he looks like he has a cross eye going on. He looks like he got that like Tarzan look to him. So just to give you a little bit of idea of Shar, I mean, although he does look like he's a wild dude, I think that he does fight really technically. As far as his stand up, he's a very accomplished striker. Actually, I believe that he's been competing in the MMA kind of scene since he was a teenager. So this guy has a lot of experience. Um, when he does his takedown defense, he will just light people up. I mean, I think that he does a really good job of really making people get punished when they try to go in for the takedowns. He has a really good defensive grappling, and also in terms of striking, he doesn't really have like offensive grappling, but he really sets up that kickboxing that he has. Also, he's good in and out of the pocket. He also has a really good amount of power in his strikes as well. So I really like watching him as far as his highlights. He's going up against Bruno Silva, who has a big power here. I don't know if he's going to have the power advantage over Shara, but just as pure power, you've seen it in his last few fights. He is a good kickboxer and a Muay Thai striker, but thing that I don't like about him, and this has been an ongoing issue since since his fight against Alex Pereira, this guy likes to go kind of head in first, right? He likes to just throw caution to the wind and really leave his chin out there. So doing that, being that wild in the pocket, it has led to him making some mistakes in the cage. I mean, just look at his last fight against Brendan Allen. That was a straight banger for the first like few minutes. Both guys were throwing like really powerful leather, and then Bruno just had that chin kind of cracked, and then he got subbed, rear neck and choked by Brendan Allen. So I feel like Bruno's chin is deteriorating a little bit, and alongside with that kind of questionable cage IQ of taking damage, I feel like Char is going to find the knockout here sometime. I feel like the UFC knows what they're doing, setting up Char in Abu Dhabi against Bruno Silva, who does have a name value because he's the guy that Alex Pereira couldn't knock out, but he's been real chinny in the last few fights. This guy even got chinned up bad by GM3 Gerald Mearshart. That's not going to be a good look. So I think Char might get the KO here. I would play Shar by KO if I were to pick like a prop. As of now, as far as a parlay piece, I'm gonna pass on it for now. I'm just gonna try to see what he looks like at least for weigh-ins, and also, I mean, this is his UFC debut, so I kind of want to see a little bit more tape before I kind of trust him with a parlay kind of money juice. But I mean, Bruno is definitely dangerous enough here to kind of cause a KO for a UFC debut. So I'm gonna stay away from the money line. But if I were to play it, I'll probably play Sharp by KO. I think that could be a good play there. Just to let you know about the odds, real quick. Shara actually opened up at a minus 300 and it got bet to about minus 185, but now it has since settled to minus 275. So initially people were, thinking it's a big favorite, got bet down to almost 2-1, but now it's about minus 275. Alex, I want to hear your thoughts about this first fight that we have in the prelims here. What are your thoughts about Shara versus Bruno Silva here?
Yeah, I mean, damn, I'm not gonna fade this Dagestani killer. He has that cross-eyed, like you said. Man, he's it's when I broke down this fight, he was on the precipice of a giga lock.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like Magomedov here for sure. And I think I really like the inside the distance prop bet. So not necessarily like a KO or not just a KO, but just to win inside the distance. Um, looking at Bruno Silva, like you said, he he lost against GM3, which is like a very, very bad look. Um, he keeps his hands pretty low, but like you said, he does throw really heavy shots. Um, and I think that's gonna be like obviously the one kind of win condition for Bruno Silva. I think for the most part, Magomedov has like decent range control and footwork, but looking at like Magomedov's fights, there were times where the opponent would kind of get him cornered against the cage, and so how I think about this fight is I think Bruno Silva will get Magomedov like into that like trap near the cage. Um, and that's where Magomedov is going to be in the most danger. But I think he's going to utilize kind of like the Muay Thai clinch and be able to kind of work around those like dangerous areas. Um, but I definitely do think there's going to be a finish either way, and I like it on the bullet side. So inside the distance is probably going to be the bet for me here.
I actually like that. He could pull out a sub that we haven't seen before. Who knows, right? UFC debut, the juices could be flowing. I actually do like covering all the bases just in case that doesn't hit. KO right now is plus 100 for the bullet. Inside the distance is minus 115, so not too bad. Might as well pay that minus kind of 115 juice just to cover the sub because you never know what could happen. I mean, Bruno Silva just got subbed his last fight, right? So that's definitely in the play. Initially, also when I was breaking down this fight, I was thinking about like over 1.5 because I was just thinking, man, maybe Bruno Silva's going to be a little bit smarter this fight. But I remember I did like an over bet first like last fight, right? And
Yeah.
right when that fight started, I was like, oh no, this is not gonna work. Like these two guys are playing way too wild. So yeah, I'm probably gonna stay away from over this time and probably just kind of go with the bullet instead and fade Bruno here. Because yeah, I think his fights are just way too wild at this point. Um, all right, so we'll just go to the next fight there. That's already one fight off of the prelim. The next fight, it's going to be a women's MMA fight. We got Jin Yu Frey versus Victoria Dudakova. Of course, Jin Yu Frey, she is the veteran, right? 11-9, 2-3 in her last five, coming off get that UD loss against Elise Reed. She's 38 years old, 5'3", 65-inch reach, going up against Victoria Dudakova, 7-0, coming off of that kind of KO freak injury against Estela Nunez, where she took down Estela. Then I think Estela just landed on her elbow wrong and kind of just snapped in half. It was pretty disgusting watching that. But So she's 24 years old, 5'5", 67-inch reach. So she's going to be the slightly longer and taller fighter in this matchup, the much younger fighter in this matchup as well. Um, the odds, just to also let you know, I mean, the odds have gotten pretty crazy here. It's Victoria started off at the minus 450. She has since been bet to minus 525. So people are on the Victoria train here, and yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, personally, full disclaimer, I'm really done with, you know, betting women's MMA. But I feel really confident about Victoria though. I mean, I wish I could put her in a parlay because I think that this is probably the right time to parlay someone. But once again, I've just been having just bad vibes from women's MMA fight for the last month or so. So I'm probably gonna stay away from it. I do think that Jin Yu, she wants to pressure forward with her activity and try to get you up on the cage and initiate that grappling clinch work, and then hopefully try to take you down the process throughout all of those exchanges. I think Jin has good size, strength, physicality. At age 38, though, I feel like those attributes seem to be fading. I mean, we saw that in the last fight, right? Elise Reed, she took down Elise Reed like three times. She still lost that fight on the scorecards because she faded down the stretch. She couldn't keep that game plan going for all 15 minutes. And, I don't think that she was good in stand up situations. She really just wants to grapple and clinch and use her physicality and her strength to make the fight dirty. She was also KO'd just two fights ago against Polyana Viana, I think. And
Mhm.
chin durability. I feel like both of those things are fading, right? I mean, it's just you lost to Elise Reed here, then you got KO'd two fights ago. I think that's a dangerous situation to be against in the fighter against Victoria, who's you know I feel like she's a better all around fighter here, kind of impressive skill set wise all around for her age and experience. I mean, she only has like seven fights in her pro record, but she's displayed a lot of good skill set on the feet and on the ground. I think that she can stay outside and land, and also work in and land to initiate her grappling or takedowns. Uh, from what I've seen so far, though, she does seem to favor the grappling situations more. And when she does get on top, she has really good top control pressure. In her first fight on the Contender Series, I think she had like 10 and a half minutes of control time once she got her opponent down. So I think that she does really have good top game. Still, though, I mean, she is relatively untested because of how her last fight ended with Estela Nunez. That was a freak injury, but it looked like Victoria was about to kind of get her grappling on, but we're never going to know, right, what would happen. But I mean, I think I'm going to go with the much younger fighter here. She's like what, five minus 525 now, so since women's MMA, I'm probably going to pass. The over might be good here. Who knows? The over right now, just to kind of let you guys know. Let me see this. It's minus 230. I mean, I think Jinyu is pretty durable. I'll probably go with the over there. We'll see as the kind of card plays out, but that might be a parlay piece that I could look into playing. Um, the thing that the reason why I do think that this could lead to a decision fight is that, and Victoria should win, is Jinyu does have a 89% takedown defense, and she is pretty physically like strong and stout, right? Although she fades, she has a lot of muscle on her, and she's going to be the stockier fighter here. So I think that Victoria could have a little bit of issues trying to initiate her grappling, so that could cause a situation where both of them are just kind of clinching the whole fight, right? So I think that that could be a good play for the over. But yeah, my pick here is Victoria. No play on the money line for the parlay. I'll probably parlay the over if I had to, though. So I'll definitely be looking into that. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Victoria and Jin Free here?
Yeah, I agree. Like I also have no play here. I think the odds are like too wide to put in a parlay. Um, yeah, so I initially thought that Dudakova was gonna be like a giga lock for me. But I think she, like you said, she's relatively untested compared to Jinyu Frey. I mean, she's fought like more UFC talent. Um, and like Dudakova, like she had one fight, like I watched on YouTube. It was like right before she got into the UFC. I didn't really like her inactivity, I'd say.
Hmm.
Like she would get the so she's primarily a wrestler. Like she's trying to get like the fight down to the mat. Um but I guess one thing that's good is like she's not gonna rush the position. She's gonna make sure she secures that position, and then kind of, rain down ground and pound. But she takes quite a long time to get into those positions. And her striking didn't overly impress me. It was more so like wild striking to get into those wrestling clinch positions. And against an opponent like Jinh Frey, who you just said like has an 86% takedown defense, who is short and stocky, who has experience like being in the clinch and wrestling. It can get kind of dicey, I'd say. But I mean, the pick is definitely still Dudakova. Like she's a younger fighter, straight out of Russia. I feel like it's kind of set up for her to win. But yeah, if I have a play, it's probably also the over 2.5. But kind of staying away from this one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll try to see if the over 2.5 is like a parlayable piece. Most likely it will be, but yeah, I'm probably gonna stay away from this too. I'm getting some weird vibes from this fight as you argue. So yeah, we'll just move on to the next fight. Always more opportunities to kind of make money, especially with this card. So the next fight here on the prelims, we have the third fight on the prelim right now. It's going to be Nathaniel Wood versus Mohammad Naev. The Nathaniel Wood, the prospect, he's 19-5, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off of that unanimous decision over Andre Fili, which I thought was a really close fight, even though it was a UD. It's a very close fight that they had. He's 30 years old, so right in the prime of his career. 5'6", 69-inch reach. He's going up against Mohammad Naev, 9-2, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off of that really big win as a big underdog over Jamie Malarkey. I remember that Jamie Malarkey was like a huge favorite, and I think Jamie was doing well in that fight, but straight up just got caught by this guy and his power. 29 years old, so he's also kind of in the prime of his career physically. 5'9", 70-inch reach, so he's going to be the taller fighter here, slight reach advantage. Odds right now, I think Nathaniel Wood is a minus 330, opened up at a minus 400. So a little bit of dog action on the power of Naimov there. I think that this is going to be a really interesting fight because I believe that actually Naimov, he was fighting short notice against Jamie Malarkey up a weight, right? So he usually fights on featherweight, but I think he was fighting at 155. And even though Jamie was doing really well in that fight, and that fight was probably going his way, still came out with a big dub, still came out with an underdog win. So he's kind of in a similar situation right here. Um, I think that this is going to be a much tougher fight though for Naimov, just because Nathaniel Wood is a good, solid striker, decent power. I think he has great dirty boxing. He can grapple. He also has some good upper body takedowns where he does his trips. I mean, you especially saw that against when he fought Charles Jourdain, right? He did a lot of trips against Charles that fight and really kind of threw him off. Good volume as well. I feel like he can do it all. If you look at his UFC record, he even has submissions under his belt in the UFC. So really good all round fighter. He's one of these fighters that I always say they always do really well in decision fights because of their style, their high volume, and their takedowns. They know how to mix it in. So it creates kind of really good optics for them, right? Like you see this guy who's kind of constantly pumping out volume, even if it's in kind of the pocket. He's a really quick kind of striker, and then he mixes in those takedowns and trips you. So just the optics of kind of looking at that, right? It seems like the people who are doing that, they're probably controlling and winning the majority of the fight. The one thing that I think he does lack is that he doesn't have like a straight KO power, right? It's more of like kind of a build up of volume for him to kind of hurt and damage you. But I think that that fast kind of quick striking can really hurt you and damage you over the course of 15 minutes with that volume, that pace, and that cardio. And I think that that's going to be a kind of mismatch against Naimov, who I feel like he seems more of like a plotter who will kind of come forward and strike. He does mix in the grappling with the takedowns, but he can also kind of get taken down himself. I think that Malarkey had a few takedowns in that fight, and he was losing that fight. So Naimov does have underrated power, though. I mean, he knocked out Jamie Malarkey at a division up from this division that he's going to fight. So this guy has power. Um, I It'll be really interesting because Naimov will be fighting with a full camp as opposed to short notice. Uh, I think Malarkey was actually a much better matchup for Naimov, so I think Wood just seems more measured and has a higher IQ, a fight IQ, as opposed to Jamie Malarkey, who's jack of all trades, but he really loves to kind of get into brawls, right? Which is not a good recipe. It might kind of be laying juice there. So I wouldn't. I would say Wood by decision. Um, I'll wait to see what face-offs look like to decide if I want to put Nathaniel Wood into a parlay because I really feel strongly about Nathaniel Wood. I feel like he's the better fighter in all areas in this, except maybe for the power. So we'll see what happens, see how he kind of reacts to seeing Naimov in person. But yeah, the play for me is Nathaniel Wood by decision. And right now, just to let you guys know about that, is plus 105. I think that's pretty decent. That's not that bad. I think that this fight's probably going to go the over actually. So over 2.5 at minus 160 is not bad as well. So yeah, pick here is Nathaniel Wood by points. I'll see how he looks at the weigh-ins to kind of parlay him at minus 330. But for now, we'll go by Wood by decision at plus 105. Alex, what do you think about Nathaniel Wood and Naimov here?
Yeah, I really like Nathaniel Wood in this fight also. I think he's a better fighter, cleaner strikes, combinations. So I think l- breaking down this fight. I think he's going to dominate Naimov here, to be honest. I'm definitely going to have him in my parlays. Um, just watching Wood's last fight against Feely, Wood was at a 4-inch reach disadvantage, but he was still able to tag Feely and knock him down. So this time with the fight being a 1-inch disadvantage, he's definitely gonna have no issue um, getting to Naimov. Like the one worry that I do have is, in the Feely fight, Nathaniel Wood did get knocked down twice as
Mm-hmm.
well. So with Naimov's power, I mean, like he can get knocked out. Like this, it's definitely not a surefire win. Um, but like looking at Naimov's fight against Malarkey, I think his power it's more of like counterpunch power.
Mm-hmm.
His knockout against Malarkey, it was Malarkey that kind of came in, and Naimov kind of caught him with that. So. Um, and to add to that point, like Malarkey had a close fight against Makdessi,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought Malarkey was gonna like smoke Makdessi, but so I'm not like that impressed with Malarkey now. So like I don't know, like it, I don't rate Naimov as highly. Um, so I think. I really like Nathaniel Wood in this spot, but I wouldn't mind someone putting like a round two or round three KO prop for Naimov
Ooh,
just
yeah,
because Nathaniel Wood can get caught, and we've seen him get caught. But at least for me, I really like Nathaniel Wood in parlays. I think he's gonna get it done. He's just like the better fighter, to be honest.
yeah, definitely, definitely. How do you think Wood gets it done? What kind of method would you go for?
See, this is the thing. I would rather play Nathaniel Wood in parlays because like I can see the sub, I can see the
Mm-hmm.
KO, or I
Mm-hmm.
can see the decision. Like I can see a lot of like ways that Nathaniel Wood wins. Um, so I think for me, I would probably stick with the money line, even though that's like really juiced or it's like pretty wide. That's why I would play him in parlays, to get those odds like down.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like we're both on the Wood train there. Hopefully he looks great at weigh-ins, and we could kind of commit there, at least for me. But yeah, I feel like Wood's going to be in a lot of people parlays just because of breakdown of styles and all that, right? I mean, you can kind of see on the tape as well. I feel like this is going to be a much worse matchup for Naimov than Wood. So yeah, we'll see what happens in that fight. Next fight that we have, we're still in the prelims. This is going to be a technically a UFC debut. I feel like this guy, I think he fought in like the road to UFC. Anshul Jubli. He's 7-0, 5-0 in his last five, and he's fighting against Mike Breeden actually. Jubli is 28 years old, 6 feet and 69-inch reach, so he's pretty tall for a lightweight. He's fighting against Mike Breeden, who is 10-6, 2-3 in his last five. Coming off of that, just Terrence McKinney kind of T-Rex kind of just hunted him down and knocked him out. He's actually coming off three straight losses, so not that great for Mike Breeden. 34 years old, 5'10", 70-inch reach. Um, the odds for this fight, I mean, Jubilee opened up. I need to make sure that this is accurate because when I saw this, I thought that was freaking crazy. He opened up at a minus 900, and it's, I know I think that's pretty disrespectful. Honestly, that's kind of weird. And now he's a minus 270. Look, I know that Mike Breeden is he's not the best fighter, right, on the UFC roster. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of accomplishments yet. Hasn't really done much. But man, I'm not sure if this Jubilee guy is a minus 900 in anything. That's pretty wild to me. The fight that I did see Jubilee win was against Jekka. I don't know how to say that guy's last name, but amazingly enough, I mean, I feel so stupid for even thinking this. I was on the Jekka side for that fight, and you can just imagine like how bad that was because like right when you saw the fight start, you're like, oh man, Jekka's gonna get steamrolled. This guy, I don't know what the fuck this guy was
Doing some funny shit with his
doing.
face.
Yeah, like he was like all of his it seemed like he was a guy who just got picked up from the bar and then they just put in the cage and they're like, yo, like try to fight this dude, and it was all bad from the first bell, dude. Like it was so bad. But yeah, I mean Jubilee's coming off of that win where he kind of ground and pounded and kind of just did whatever to Jekka. Then he had a road to a UFC win that was like a split decision win. So not a lot of not a lot of good record of competition there for this guy. I mean, he's fought twice in the UFC against two guys who might not be UFC caliber. Mike Breeden is a vet. I think that this fight is going to be really difficult to kind of see who wins. I mean, Jubilee has solid striking. He does have grappling skills. I think for how tall he is, for how long he is, he's pretty fast actually. He's not like a slow guy, but I don't think he's like amazing anywhere. But he's like kind of jack of all trades that can do a little bit of everything. Um, he can get hit though if he doesn't commit all the way to mixing in his takedowns. I think you kind of saw that in the first fight that he had against that Korean guy in Road to the UFC. So I don't know if he's the safest guy to be at, like especially at minus 900. I think that's crazy. I mean, Mike Breeden does have decent volume. He is like a decent striker. He also does have a bad chin though, and he can get taken down. I mean, if you just look at Mike Breeden's last few losses, right? Got KO'd by Terrence McKinney, and then he got out grappled by Natan Levy. So his get up game is actually not that bad because he got taken down 9 times. So it means that he got up, right. He can get up from the takedowns, but still, I mean, to get grinded out and then to get KO'd, it's not a good look on your kind of career there. So I don't think that Mike Breeden's even UFC caliber. I don't think that Jubilee is UFC caliber at this point, but I feel like they bring on Mike Breeden for a reason. I feel like they do have him fight these guys who they want kind of build a record, especially UFC wants to expand their kind of market share, right? India is a huge market. I don't think that we have any kind of famous kind of Indian fighters yet. So this could be a kind of push for Jubilee to kind of get a dub here, especially on a card like Abu Dhabi. Um, so I'm going Jubilee for the pick, but yeah, I'm staying away from this fight. We need a little bit more information before we could trust a guy like Jubilee at these prices. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Jubilee and Mike Breeden?
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm staying away too. Like there's no way I'm laying that those minus odds on a guy like Jubli, man. Like five of his 7 wins are like very padded. Like he's fighting bums in the Indian regional scene. Just looking at like the records on a Tapology, it's kind of crazy. And then yeah, his last fight that was just a very funny fight because Jekyll is just making faces and like I don't know, it's a very weird fight. But I will say that I think he has like a very good ground game. So he's definitely going to look to get the fight down to the mat. Um, and Natan Levy was able to take Breeden down quite a few times. Um, but like Breeden hits hard, and if you don't get him out of there in the first round, I could see him like coming on heavy like towards round two, round three. So yeah, like I don't want to touch this fight like at all. For me, like it would probably be like a round two, round three KO prop for Breeden. But I mean, I'm probably not gonna play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just gonna stay away from this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm probably not gonna end up putting any money on it. The over is actually 1.5 now, so they do the bookmakers kind of do think that the fight's gonna end somehow. But yeah, I mean, just yeah, we can save the money for the other cards that are gonna happen in the fight because there are a lot more that could be good. So we'll move on to the next fight. We're still in the prelims. This is going to be also, I think, a fun fight for as long as it lasts. We have SD Dumas versus Abu Azaitar. Sedriques Dumas or SD Dumas, he's 8-1. He's 4-1 his last five, 28 years old, 6'2", 79-inch reach. He is famous for being that street fighter, right? That the UFC found. Then they kind of put him on the scene in a contender series fight, and he's since fought two more times, losing to Josh Frem by submission by a guillotine choke, and then coming off the decision win over Cody Brundage. So not the best competition as well for his record so far. He's fighting against Abu Azaitar. Abu Azaitar 14-3-1. He's 4-1 in his last five. He is coming off of that ground and pound kind of loss to Mark Andre Berholt. Um, he is 37 years old, so the much older fighter in this matchup, 5'9", 76-inch reach. So he's going to be a shorter fighter here, and he does have a slight reach disadvantage here. Um, the odds for this fight, it hasn't really moved that much. It actually opened up at a minus 250. Then it got bet to about a minus 175, stayed there for about a week, but it has since been bet back to minus 250. So there was a little bit of dog action going on for about a week since it opened. And then people slowly started to kind of buy back on SD Dumas here. Um, Man, I mean, I think SD Dumas, he's actually pretty well rounded for being a street fighter. You would think that usually when people think of street fighting, think of guys like a Jorge Masvidal or a early Jorge Masvidal, right? Or a Kimbo Slice. People would just like strike and kind of do nothing else. But if you watch him grapple, it's actually not that bad. I mean, he was hanging in there with, Josh Frem, who, not the best fighter, but he does have some grappling skill. And then he obviously out grappled Cody Brundage, which maybe not the hardest thing to do, but he still did it, right? And I think he has good reach for his division, good height. He can really strike and grapple as well. He did out grapple a wrestler in Cody Brundage, and after Cody kind of made many mistakes in that fight, right? I mean, Cody made a lot of mistakes, and really. I think that fight really kind of turned when Cody pulled the guillotine once because after that, SD kind of just took advantage and won the rest of the fight pretty handily. So I think that matching up against a guy like Abu Zaitar, who, if you look at his record, I mean, he's pretty inactive, right? He doesn't fight a lot. So I always don't like to kind of I kind of like to fade those fighters who aren't active because it shows that, hey, they're probably not that serious about, fighting, especially in the UFC. Just to kind of give you a little bit of context, this is going to be his third fight in 5 years. I mean, that's not a good schedule for being a kind of UFC caliber fighter, right? He had one UFC fight in 2018, and then his last fight was in 2021. So I mean, he's only had two fights in the last 5 years. This is going to be his third one. When I did see the tape of Abu, I mean, I feel like he's a kind of an old school brawler who likes to, dirty box, hold you up against the cage. He loves to move forward and pressure. Not the greatest takedowns. He really wants to kind of strike with the clinch work and against, obviously, the dirty boxing. Um, he doesn't have good gas tank, especially in his last fight. And I mean, at age 37, does Abu look like it's going to get, does that look like it's going to get better? I doubt it. I mean, unless this guy is on some kind of juice that we don't know about. I just think that that's going to get worse and worse. The gas tank does not get better with age. So just with the lack of activity in the last few years, doesn't seem like fighting is his passion anymore. He's also, I think, the brother of the Ottman Azaitar, the guy who just got like KO'd by Francisco Prado. So you kind of see all what happened there. I mean, I don't think these Azaitar dudes are all about fighting right now. I mean, they're doing some other stuff. Um, yeah, I feel like SD by decision is going to be my pick. I am staying away from this right now though because I don't trust SD quite that much yet. I feel like I want to see him perform before I kind of lay juice on him as a over 250 favorite. I mean, I feel like he was in the same situation against Josh Freeman. Just didn't work out. So let me see him do this against Abu. If he can do it, I'll trust him later in the future. Um, I do think that the interesting route that I might take is the over 1.5. It's minus 155. I think that these guys can both at least survive for a round and a half. I mean, I don't think this fight's gonna end quickly because I feel like SD Dumas, he does have some good grappling skills. I think Abu Zaitar, although he's not like a takedown artist, he does like to hold people against the cage. So I don't necessarily see like a knockout here unless kind of Abu catches him with something because I think that Dumas especially he's gonna come out a little bit more measured in this fight and Abu is going to come back from a 2 year layoff, so he might not. He might want to kind of get shake the cobwebs, if you will. So over 1.5 at minus 155. I'll take a look at that. But yeah, pick here is SD by decision. And I'll think about parlay piece, but not probably not right now. Alex, what do you think about SD Dumas and Abu Zaitar here?
SD Dumas.
It's our favorite fighter.
It's your street fighter, man. I just don't know if I could
Yeah,
lay juice odds on someone like SD Dumas. Like I'm not there yet. I'm not completely sold. Um, but like you said, he does have some skills. Like I was watching his fight against Josh Friend. He looked solid early. Like he had like leg kicks, straights. Um, and again, like Friend is a like a wrestler grappler. And SD Dumas was able to get up a couple of times when he got taken down. But I think he lost that fight because of his legs were getting kind of chopped.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think he'll have to worry about that against Abu Azaitar. Um, looking at, I think you make a good point about Abu Azaitar. Like the two fights in like 5 years is like really like bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like especially at like his age, I think he's like 36, 37, so he's getting up there. So like he's definitely the fighting definitely isn't like his top priority. So like that's definitely like a point right there. But Zaitar definitely does have power. Like he'll throw like these haymaker looping shots, and I could see him catching SD Dumas like with one of these shots. Um, so yeah, I don't. This is another fight that I kind of want to stay away from. Because I just don't want to be laying those juice odds on someone like SD Dumas. Like I think that I'm not there yet, so uh, he has to show me more.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, anybody who bet him in the Josh Fram fight, I mean, they probably feel like, a dumbass, right? They probably feel like
Yeah,
a SD dumbass doing that. So I'm not gonna do the same mistake that they did. I loved SD Dumas as an underdog against Cody Brundage, so I think that's the better route for him right now as far as his at this point in his career. But yeah, let's see him close out a fight as a minus 250 first before we hop on that train, because I think if he does close out this fight, let's see what the matchup is for the next fight. Then if it's kind of similar odds, we'll trust them more. But yeah, show us something first. Show us something before we hop in.
yeah,
Exactly. So let's move on to the next fight. And yeah, I mean, this is probably going to be my first Giga lock. Although it's going to be close, I think it's going to be a Giga lock. All the same. It's going to be Javid Basharat versus Victor Henry. Javid Basharat, obviously 14-0. I mean, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that win against Mateus Mendonca at for a decision win. He's Afghan, 28 years old, in the prime of his career, 5'9", 69-inch reach. I believe that he trains at Extreme Couture with Sean Strickland, so gets a lot of good sparring in that camp. He's going up against Victor Henry, 26, 23-6, 3-2 in his last five. Coming off of that really close kind of split decision win over Tony Gravely. And, he's 36, 5'7", 68-inch reach. So he's going to be the slightly shorter guy and slightly Javi Basharat is going to be the longer guy in this matchup. Slight advantage there. He is going to be the older guy, though. Odds wise, man, I mean, the odds have gotten really crazy for this. Javid Basharat opened up at a minus 350, and throughout the course of that day, it was bet down to like a minus 625, and that's kind of where it stands now. I mean, so people instantly saw that this guy's a 3-1 favorite, and then made him a 6-1 favorite right off the bat. I mean, the money flow was kind of insane for this one. Um, I don't blame him. I mean, I this is my gig log. I think that Javi Basharat, although the price is kind of crazy now, minus 625. I mean, I have to think about that, but you know, I think that this is a good matchup for him. I mean, he has terrific offensive and defensive grappling. He's also a good striker who stays safe and pumps out a really good volume and pace. You can kind of see that with his striking differentials. He lands 5.64 strikes per minute, 60% striking accuracy. He absorbs 2.3 strikes per minute. So this guy's ratio is off the chart. 66% striking defense. So that's also pretty high for a defense right there. And he has to do two takedowns per 15 minutes, 57% accuracy, 85% takedown defense. So he doesn't get taken down himself. I mean, good variety of punches and kicks, can fight in all distances in the clinch and on the outside. I think in this matchup, if Javid Basharat is who I think he is, he will most likely try to out wrestle Victor Henry in this matchup after he strikes for a bit, right? Let's say he tries to strike for like half a round, maybe less, and then he's going to work in those takedowns to steal and solidify those rounds, right? Even let's say that's a close round. I think he's going to mix in his kind of grappling and with his accuracy. I think it's going to be good optics for a decision victory. This is another fighter where I think that his fighting style, similar to kind of a Nathaniel Wood, it just looks like his fighting style just looks better for a decision victory because he's pumping out high volume and he's mixing in those kind of grappling situations there. I do think that this fight wise, I mean, the odds are a little wide. They are a little wide because I think Victor Henry is a legitimate fighter. I mean, he's a high volume kickboxer who throws at an even higher pace than Javid. He has really good sprawl and kind of brawl style that works against wrestlers. You saw that with his Ronnie Barcelos fight in his first fight in the UFC. He kind of stuffed a lot of Ronnie's takedowns, and then he was just outpacing this guy for all 3 rounds in that fight. I think that he threw like 400 something strikes in that fight. I mean, that's nothing to joke. That's like nothing to sneeze at. And then in his other fights, I mean, this guy's averaging hundreds of strikes on his output. So he does have mixed results in his 3 fights so far. I mean, he did really well against Ronnie Barcelos I think he was a pretty decent underdog in that fight. And then he lost against Rafael Assunção, and he was a heavy favorite in that fight. So it's kind of contrasting kind of victories and losses there, which is kind of interesting because I mean Rafael Sunsao and Ronnie Barcelos, Tony Gravely, who he had a kind of split win against. All three of those fighters have decent power and like to wrestle, but you kind of see a different result in each fight, right? Which I think is really interesting because he had a split win against Tony Gravely, a pretty dominant win against Barcelos, and then he lost against Sunsao. So um, I do think the similarity between those guys were that they were all kind of old in a way, and he's going to be fighting a guy in who Javid. I mean, I feel like Javid Basharat's in his prime right now, and he looks ready to secure another dub on his record. Javid's going to be the younger guy here. Um, I do think this is going to be a decision fight, so I'm kind of worried about that in that sense because you just never know what could happen in decision fights, especially with a guy that Victor Henry, he just pumps out that volume. So it could look a little different. Like, let's say that he stuffs his takedowns from Javid. This fight could look really close. Then, I mean, at that point, I'll just say right now, Javid Basharat by decision could be good. Um, but I'll wait for the kind of the parlay for the face-offs there because I do think that I need to see how they look stacked up against each other. But I mean, Javid by decision, by the way, is minus 150 right now, so people kind of already paid that juice in a way, so it's not really like not really a plus odds kind of deal right there. But yeah, I think that Javid's going to win this fight. I mean, I would feel comfortable in putting him in a parlay after the face-offs, but I'll eventually probably put him in a parlay. I think that he's like a semi-gig lock after it kind of broke down each fighter. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Javid Basharat and Victor Henry here?
Yeah, I think Basharat is also my gigalock here. I'm gonna put him in my parlay, set and forget type deal. Um,
Like that.
like I think Henry is a solid overall fighter, but I just think Basharat is better, even an even better fighter than like his overall style. Like I think Basharat is just better, everywhere, like on the feet, wrestling, grappling. I think Basharat has all areas really covered. Um, when I was, breaking down Victor Henry, I also noticed, same thing that you did, great pace, cardio, punches, teep kicks, solid get up game. But, Basharat, I feel like, again, just better everywhere. Um, Interesting thing is like Basharat and Victor Henry, I feel like they both have a very like similar like frame as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, these both these fighters are like really similar. I just think Basharat is better everywhere. Um, but yeah, like the odds are pretty wide, so I really like Basharat by decision. I think, to get those odds down, like I see this as a decision fight. Like ever since Basharat has been in the UFC, like all his fights have actually gone to decision.
Right.
Um, so I think, this is another like decision fight. But if you're gonna put him in like some like big parlays, maybe just do money line to be safe.
Hmm.
And maybe like if you're doing like medium parlays or you're putting like maybe like a unit or more, then you can do the Basharat by decision. But um, yeah, I like Basharat here. Either money line for like a set and forget parlay and decision if you want to get those odds down. If you want to do a straight bet or something like I think that's really good. I feel like it's going to be a decision.
Definitely. Yeah, what do you think about the over 2.5? I want to get your thoughts on that. It's minus 275 right now. The only reason why I bring that up is because I feel like I played an over for Javid's brother Fareed. He just straight up subbed someone like the first like round or so. But that was just a bad analysis on my part because I think I did that over with a shoot box guy. That didn't work
Yeah,
out.
yeah. The shoot bot guys always they always tap out, man. Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you should.
I thought that fight was gonna go over as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Like Victor Henry, like he's got skills, you know. He's not like a
Hmm.
bum or anything.
Right.
Uh, and all six of his losses are from decision for
Hmm.
Victor Henry. So like he's never been KO'd or submitted. Like this, I mean, this looks like a decision fight. Unless something crazy happens, we'll see.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. Maybe the over could be something good. The maybe potential leg on a parlay or something because over 2.5 is minus 275 right now. Obviously,
Yeah,
much better than playing a Javid as a straight money line at minus 625 right now. So maybe there's some value there. But yeah, we'll see. Let's see how weigh-ins look and face offs and all that jazz. Next fight that we have on the prelims. This is a really long prelims, really action packed. We have Muhammad Yahya versus Trevor Peak. Muhammad, he is 12-3, 29 years old, 5-0 in his last five. I believe this is going to be his UFC debut. 5'9", 73-inch reach. Fight against Trevor Peak, 8-1, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off of that pretty convincing L against Chepe Mariscal. 28 years old, 5'9" as well, 70-inch reach. So Muhammad does have the 3-inch reach advantage here. Odds for this really wild swings. Trevor Peak opened up at a plus 330 underdog. And throughout these last 2, 3 weeks or so, he has been now bet to a minus 161. So a total complete line movement right there. I think that's a really interesting telltale sign. I mean, usually, for as long as I've been kind of tracking these line movements and these kind of fights, usually when an underdog flips to a favorite, that whoever flips to a favorite usually has won at a higher clip, from what I've seen at least, because it kind of shows that you know the bookies set a line one way, and then people did their research, they did their study, and then they kind of push that line to the other side, especially when it's this drastic from a 3-1 dog to now he's almost a 2-1 favorite. So Yahya, he is a patient striker. I think that he does keep his hands somewhat low near his chest area. He likes to kind of bounce in and out of range. Very much like a sniper style kind of striker and a fighter. He can be low volume at times because he tries to really hunt for that perfect KO shot. He does have KO power, and he can KO you if he lands those shots. He also has good kind of cage awareness. So like if people are threatening him with their striking exchanges, he can kind of hold people against the cage if needed. But I don't know if he has like good like wrestling skills or takedown skills to actually get the fight to the ground and like hold people there. He's more so of a striker from what I've seen, and he can also get hit kind of with his low volume kind of pressure there. So um, I think that that's going to be potentially bad news against a guy like Trevor Peak because, if you remember, Chepe incorporated a lot of grappling in that win that he did against Trevor Peak, right? I mean, Trevor Peak has granite chin, throws wild with some good power. He did get taken down and exposed by Chepe in this area. But I think that just from the stylistic matchup in this fight, you're not going to get a lot of grappling from Muhammad, and this is probably going to be a stand-up fight. So I think that what people are seeing is that eventually Trevor Peak is going to weather these potential storms. And it might not even be that much of a storm because Muhammad is a patient striker. He's going to wait until someone comes at him. So man, I think that right now I would say Peak by KO is going to be something that's really interesting. I mean, I know that it might be tough to lay juice on Trevor Peak after that last performance. This is the guy that does like hammer fist punches. It might be tough to kind of lay money on a guy like that, right? Who is not the most technical guy, but I think that Peak by KO is probably the play here. I'll see what the weigh-ins look like, but the pick for now is Trevor Peak. But yeah, I mean, I probably will stay away from this as well because I just don't know if I can trust Trevor Peak unless he's facing like a Cam, like an Eric Gonzalez, right? Like that was a perfect matchup for him to kind of showcase his skills. But if he's fighting against a guy who is a more patient striker, more technical striker, he could run into the same issues they ran into against Chepe. So the pick right now is Trevor Peek, but I'm probably staying away from this. Alice, what do you think about this fight between Peek and Muhammad here?
Yeah, I was actually going back and forth with this one. Like same kind of thought process as you. Like Trevor Peek looks like one of those fighters that like I don't want to back.
Yeah,
It's like one of those. I mean, like things can go wrong when you back this type of fighter, um, because they're like so wild. Um, I definitely see him as like a first round specialist. Like he throws with a lot of power. He's always going for that kill shot. He lets his hands and legs go with like, full force. Um, and he puts on like insane pressure from like the opening bell, from what I've seen. One thing I did notice was that it seemed like his even though he was really gassed, like it seemed like his power was carrying over like relatively well. Like it still seemed like his shots like if they land they would really hurt. So I mean that's something that's going for Peak. And then for Muhammad Yahya, making his UFC debut, one thing like I noticed even before I broke down Muhammad Yahya's tape, was that he does have one first round KO loss on his record. And Trevor Peek being a first round specialist, that could be something. Um, but breaking down his fight, I definitely do think Muhammad Yahya has skills. Um, I think he's more of like a counter puncher. And I can see him catching Peak when Peak kind of over aggresses in the first round. Um, But in his last, another thing I noticed was in Muhammad Yahya's last fight against Sohail Tahiri, he
Mhm.
was knocked to the ground at the end of the first round. So that further kind of it's like another data point of him, Muhammad Yahya, having a questionable, like being hittable in the first round. And he's just hittable in general. So yeah, going back and forth with this one, I think I'm gonna stay away as well. But yeah, I mean, I told myself I'm not backing fighters that are kind of like Trevor Peek, like the I don't know how to describe it. It's just like these losing fighters, like they find ways to lose. So yeah, staying away from this fight though.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your thoughts. I mean, I think that the way that I would describe it is that these fighters that turn everything into a 50-50 brawl kind of style, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find an edge, right? So like, if I mean 50-50, is that really an edge? If you turn every fight into a 50-50, it means at that point it's a coin toss, right? We want to try to find an edge where we get a little bit of a favor. Let's say we get like a 60-40 or 70-30, something like that. So I mean, if you have a guy who just swings wildly, relies on his chin to kind of weather storms, not the best guy to back, especially as a favorite. I am envious of people who I mean, not cash, but like got peak at those dog odds at plus 330 or plus 300 or something like that, because I think that's insane value right there. That's turning that's good for a 50-50 bet, right? To get those dog odds. So, but not right now at a minus 161. I think the odds have gotten a little crazy for this fight. So yeah, I mean, pick is Trevor Peak for both of us, but probably going to stay away. So yeah, we'll move on to the next fight, and this is, I believe, let me check. This is going to be, oh, okay. So this is actually going to be the last fight on the prelim. So we finally made it. It's going to be the feature prelim of the night. We have Tim Elliott versus Muhammad Mokaev. Um, but really fun fight. I mean, I'm glad that they found a fight for Muhammad Mokaev. I know he was trying to get a fight after he amazingly, I don't know how this guy's even fighting, because last fight he tore his knee or something. So yeah, I'm amazed that he's actually even coming back. But anyways, he's fighting against Tim Elliott, 19-12-1, 4-1 his last five. Obviously, he's in the UFC vet, 36 years old. 5'7", 66-inch reach. They're going to be fighting the flyweight division, by the way. fighting against Mohammad Mokaev, 9-0, 5-0 in his last five, coming off of that submission rear naked choke over Hafe Fiallo. But once again, he got himself into a really gnarly kind of knee bar there. And, I think, yeah, he tore like every ligament. I'm surprised that he's even fighting right now. 23 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach. So he's going to be the slightly longer fighter here as far as the reach advantage, 4-inch reach there. Uh, odds wise, I mean, I wish they were a little tighter, honestly, because I would have definitely played Muhammad Mokaev, but he opened up at a minus 500. He did get bet to a minus 700 at one point, and now he's a minus 425 as far as his odds. So a little bit of action on Tim Elliott, the vet. Tim Elliott, for those who don't know, I mean, he's a tough old school fighter. He has a really awkward style where he likes to kind of face towards his side to his opponent and then kind of force out strikes and incorporate that kind of dirty grappling in a way and tries to get a sub. I mean, this guy really loves to go for those subs. He comes forward, high pace, high pressure. He likes to turn those fights into grappling kind of fights where he does his best work. Um, you saw against that last fight though, against Victor Altamirano, his gas tank does seem to be fading a little bit as he ages. I think that he started off really strong against Victor, but in the later rounds, I mean, Victor was making that fight closer than it needed to be. It seemed like Elliott was, winning convincingly, and then Victor was coming back a little bit. But Tim did finish it off. He won there. Um, but I think that just style wise, this is going to be a bad matchup for Tim Elliott because Mohammad Mokaev is also a great, terrific offensive grappler, great takedowns, he's good trips. He does have a worrying kind of defensive grappling game that I'm kind of worried about now because I feel like he's been taken down in like almost every one of his fights, maybe except for the Charles Johnson one, but I feel like he's been taken down a lot. Uh, so that's a little worrying. He's not the best striker. He really wants to also turn into grappling fights. So, I mean, I feel like both of these guys are going to try to grapple each other. Um, I do think that if you're a more offensively kind of aggressive fighter, that plays into Muhammad Mokaev a little bit more because you saw what Cody Durden did, right? In against his fight against Muhammad Mokaev. Cody Durden straight up went for the kind of the all American takedown, right? The double leg, the classic double leg, and Muhammad Mokaev just kind of straight up guillotined this guy. I mean, it was a really quick one. Kind of showed him what he was about. Um, I think that that might be where we're headed. I feel like Tim Elliott is going to be ultra aggressive. He's going to go in reckless. He's going to try to prove that he's the better grappler on the ground against Mokaev. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, Tim has been finished before in his career. I mean, he's a vet. He's already lost 12 times. I feel like Muhammad's probably going to find the sub here. So my pick is Muhammad Mokaev by sub. I feel like he's a possible parlay piece. I mean, I'll probably hold off for now though until face-offs and weigh-ins. Obviously, I mean it's minus 425 right now. It is a little bit juiced up, but I don't think it's too juiced up. I mean, plus 140, by the way, is by decision. I mean, by submission. Sorry. So I think that's a pretty good prop to play if you're looking for those plus odds. Turning a 425 favorite into a plus 140 dog. So that's a pretty good one, at least in my opinion. So Mokaev by sub here. But I'll hold off for parlays depending on how face-offs look. But Alex, what do you think about Tim Elliott and Mohammad Mokaev here?
Yeah, I think Makhaev's like a very opportunistic submission expert. So my initial thought was, him winning by sub or decision. Um, but yeah, like I there are like a couple like things I don't like about Mokaev. Like I don't like his lack of volume on the feet. Um, his last fight against Filio, he had a very like lackluster round two in my opinion. Um, but he'll shoot for single leg takedowns. He'll mix it up, but I think it's more of like a fade on Tim Elliott. He's getting up there in age. Uh, like you said, his last fight against Victor Altamirano, he was he was getting pieced up on the feet, um, and getting gassed towards the later rounds. Uh, and I watched like quite a few of Elliott's like fights. I think he has a very interesting fighting stance and style. He keeps his hands like very low, but again, he also does like getting fights down to the mat. Like he's also kind of like a grappler. So I think that's gonna create opportunities for um, Mokaev to get the submission win. Um, but yeah, even though Mokaev's 23, 9-0 record, like looks like a prospect. I'm not overly impressed with him as a fighter, but I think Mokaev's gonna get it done. Um, I don't think Tim Elliott's gonna be the one to get that undefeated record from him. So
Yeah,
pick here is Mokaev.
I agree. I agree. I don't think that Tim Elliott's going to be the guy. Although he has a skill set for it, I just feel like the style matchup wise, I feel like it's not the guy to do it to Mokaev. I feel like Mokaev will be, based off what you mentioned, it could be a potential fade in the future depending on who he fights in the next fight, right? Maybe he
Yeah,
fights a more like a more like patient, kind of measured, control grappler, who kind of like a counter grappler, if you will. So like, if you find someone like that who wants to play that waiting game against him, it could be in store for a fade there. But yeah, I mean Tim Elliott is too aggressive in this case. I feel like he's going to do the same thing that, for example, like Cody Durden did. He might do the same thing, just catch this guy in the gilly. So, yeah, pick
yeah.
here is Mohammad Mokaev, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens as far as the weigh-ins, at least for me. Um, Next fight that we have, it's going to be the main card. We're finally there. This is going to be Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafurov. I feel I can't say that guy's last name. I'm just
Muin.
Gafurov. Okay, Muni Gafurov. All right, cool. So Saeed Nurmagomedov, he's coming off of that loss against Jonathan Martinez. I mean, Jonathan Martinez looked so good last week. I just want to say that. I mean, this guy just chopped up that guy Adrian Yanez's legs, made him look like he was not didn't even belong there. But anyways, Saeed Nurmagomedov, 4-1 his last five, 17-3 record, 31 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach, going up against Mooney, 18-5, 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off of that decision loss against Sexy Mexi John Castaneda. Um, 27 years old, 5'7", 68-inch reach. Odds for this, uh, not too bad. Saeed right now is minus 225, and he's now, open up at minus 225. Now he's a minus 207. Just to switch it up for the main card a little bit, Alex, I want to hear your thoughts first before I kind of react to it. What do you think about this fight here?
Yeah. So I think for this fight, one thing that I initially noticed right off the bat breaking down this fight is that Muin has a very short, stocky kind of body frame, low center of gravity. Whereas Saeed, his frame is more long and lanky. Um, so there's kind of like differences there. And usually when you have like someone who's short and stocky and someone who's long and lanky,
Hmm.
um, the cage push could be like a big factor. And in breaking down like Saeed's fights, like he does get pushed against the cage a lot. So that was like in the back of my mind for sure. Um, but looking at Muin's fights, I think for him to win this one, he's gonna have to make it like a brawl, like an ugly fight. He's gonna have to get into in. He's gonna have to push Saeed against the cage, get into the pocket, and like throw his haymakers, his heavy shots. Um, and there are periods where Gafurov likes to pick up that pace. He'll like blitz you and put on that insane pressure and throw these heavy shots. Um, so that can be very dangerous for Saeed. But I think my pick is still Saeed here. Uh, just because he's definitely like more technical like that. that's a fact right there. Saeed loves to throw his like spinning elbows. Um, so and he's like the taller one. He can piece up Muin. It just feels like Saeed is gonna win, in my opinion. So yeah, the pick is Saeed.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, Saeed, when I did break down his kind of fights, flashy striker, dangerous power in and inside and outside the pocket. Even though his last name is Nurmagomedov, not a wrestler, but he does have decent takedowns when needed against other strikers, and decent takedown defense against like non-wrestling based fighters, in my opinion. The fight that kind of turned it around for me though is when I watched him fight. I don't know how to say this guy's name either, but Sayo Kebab. That guy who the UFC, I think he was coming off of like 3 wins, and then he lost that fight. The UFC just cut straight up cut this guy because I feel like he was about to steal the hype from Saeed. I feel like the UFC does want to build this guy up because I mean his last name, right? I mean, even though they have no blood relation, Saeed has a very exciting style, has the Nurmagomedov last name, and then Sayo Kebab, man, really did a number on it. I mean, he was taking him down at will, winning the fight, and then Saeed, to his credit, I mean, he did land find a kind of gilly eventually, so he did guillotine his way out of there. But if that gilly didn't happen, I mean, he probably would have lost that fight, honestly. So that fight could have ended there. Um, he's coming off a close decision against Jonathan Martinez. I mean, when I actually was on the Saeed side in that fight, but honestly, I couldn't tell who won that fight when the fight ended. I mean, I could have it, it looked like a really close fight, and I saw the side that Jonathan Martinez that people thought that he won, but I think that could have gone either way. It was a 29-28 decision, even though it was a unanimous decision. I feel like it was a really close fight. So if he was coming off a W, I feel like the odds would have been much wider, right? So this could be a potential buy low situation on Saeed because he's going to be the better striker in this, in my opinion. He's going to fight a wrestler with good power in Muni, likes to swing wild. He does get into a lot of brawls. And Mooney, I mean, in that last fight, he kind of disappointed me. I was actually on his side against Sexy Mexi because I thought Sexy Mexi didn't have anything for this guy, but Sexy Mexi just like kind of picked him apart. And Mooney doesn't really impress me with his 0 for 6 takedowns. Like that was just bad. Like this guy couldn't take him down at all. Faded down the stretch. I mean, also gassed. So Saeed does also gas a little bit, but I mean he more so slows down in my opinion. Doesn't gas because he means just look at his last fight against Jonathan Martinez. It was a close fight till the end of the bell. So um, I would say Saeed is, yeah, like you mentioned, still my pick here in play for a possible decision or KO. Could be a good buy low in Saeed, but I just don't know if he's a parlayable piece at the moment. So I'll probably stay away from that until maybe let's see the weigh-ins, see what that looks like. But yeah, I would say that it should be a bounce back effort from Saeed Nurmagomedov where he could piece this guy on the feet and then really pay him for doing his kind of wild brawling and kind of wild striking too. So he could pay the price and get knocked out here. So yeah, pick is Saeed like you mentioned, but at least for me, I'm probably gonna not parlay this. But what do you think about Saeed as a parlay piece? Just curious.
Um, yeah, maybe not in a parlay, but like Saeed by decision, especially because Muin has never been knocked out or submitted. Um, and more often than not, like Saeed's fights, they do go to decision. Like he has 11 fights that have gone to decision, compared to 4 knockouts and 5 subs. Um, and Muin looks like a guy that, if he does get in trouble, he can just go with that cage push because he's like,
Hmm.
he seems like he's like, stockier, which he is. And Saeed, we have seen him like get pushed against the cage like that. The last like minute or two against Jonathan Martinez, that was just all up against the cage. Martinez
Yeah.
was just pushing him up against the cage. So I could see Saeed by decision. as like a straight bet. But yeah, I don't know about putting him in parlays yet.
Yeah,
But I do kind of like Saeed by decision. That seems like a good bet.
definitely. Yeah, Saeed by decision right now is plus 200, so not a bad prop to attack there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's move on to the next fight in the main card. We still have four left, and this is going to be that fourth fight on the main card. So we have Ikram Alexskarov versus Warley Alves. Obviously, Ikram 14-1, 5-0 his last five, coming off of that pretty good highlight kind of KO against Phil Hawes, and in his UFC debut, no less. 30 years old, right in the prime of his career, 6 feet, 76-inch reach, fighting against Warley Alves, 14-6, 2-3 in his last five. He's coming off against that kind of split decision loss to Nicholas Dalby, another vet. 32 years old, 5'11", 72-inch reach. So he's going to be the shorter fighter here, and Ikram's going to have the 4-inch reach advantage. Uh, Odds for this fight, they have really ballooned up. I mean, Ikram opened up at a minus 300. Now it's a minus 550. So it did get as high as, because I remember seeing it during the day today. It was like minus 600 something. Now it's actually minus 550. So a little bit of people are buying the Warley side there. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this fight is initially I thought that Ikram was going to be like a giga lock, honestly. Uh, but I mean, he's a solid all around fighter, beast of a wrestler. If you just watch his tape, he is coming off of that good KO against Phil Hawes where he found that kill shot. But if you do watch the fight against Phil Hawes, I mean, in the stand-up exchanges, it was actually pretty close there for as long as the fight was going on, right? It wasn't like Ikram was just going in there and like, for example, it wasn't like when Khamzat hunted down GM3 and just like straight up knocked this guy out in that one punch, right? It was a back and forth kind of affair, and I think that Ikram he just found that Phil Hawes chinny chin chin. I mean, Phil Hawes has no chin left, as you saw in that last fight. Phil Hawes also has like low IQ is in the cage. So this is going to be a little bit similar to that Victoria Dudakova, right? I mean, she was. This is going to be an unproven fighter in the UFC, coming off of a kind of a highlight KO win. Uh, I do like that Ikram has trained with Islam Makhachev in the past. And, Hamzat said that Ikram was his hardest fight of his career, right? Even harder than Gilbert Burns, even though like I think Hamzat knocked out this guy in like the second or first round, but he still said that Ikram was his hardest fight. So I think that means a little something. Ikram was preparing for a much tougher fight in Nasruddin Imavov, an actual ranked fighter, and now he's facing a short notice. Alves. I mean, Alves I believe he has a jiu-jitsu black belt. He likes to kind of throw one at a time, likes to make it a slugfest on the feet with his power, and really invites people in his guard. I mean, you saw I think he's famous for actually subbing or guillotining Kobe Covington that way, right? Kobe Covington, when he was fighting at 170, Alves, Kobe Covington went in for the takedown, and then Alves pulled guard and kind of pulled that gilly, and then subbed Kobe Covington there. So he's the Kobe killer, But if you just watch this fight, I mean, especially the last one, he doesn't have the greatest gas tank. I mean, he faded down the stretch against Dalby. Obviously, he also got knocked out by Jeremiah Wells. I mean, that's not that great either. So I, I still think that the UFC is setting up Ikram for an easy dub. I mean, they basically found the guy who he can kind of build off on. So I would still say Ikram, even though this is a relatively untested fighter in the UFC. He did beat Phil Hawes, who does have good striking. So I'll say Ikram is still a parlay piece. I don't think that a guy like Warley Alves is gonna, kind of be a parlay buster, if you will. So give me Ikram as a parlay piece, as a potential anchor. I think the UFC is trying to set this guy up potentially to, fight Hamza in the future or something like that again, or fight another guy that's ranked because they were setting him up to fight Nasruddin Imanov. I mean, that's a pretty legit fighter. So I think that this UFC wants to promote this guy a little bit more. I'm going Ikram parlay piece. I don't know if he's going to sub him, decision him, or knock him out because he kind of does a little bit of everything. But I think the money line's good for being a parlay kind of piece anchor there. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Ikram and Alves?
Yeah, this is my gigalot, another gigalot that I have. Um, Warley Alves, he's a natural welterweight, so
Yeah,
moving up a weight class, going into enemy territory, fighting a natural middleweight in Ikram, who just KO'd Phil Hawes in a spectacular fashion. I think I got Ikram here like pretty confidently. I also don't mind Ikram inside the distance if you want to get those odds down. I just I don't I don't see I don't see how this can go decision. Maybe. What I will say though, I agree with you, James. Like I don't think Ikram's like a god prospect. This guy's not like yeah, he's not like some killer, like Khamzat Chimaev.
right.
Um, but I think I like him. I still like him here in this spot. I think he's gonna win inside the distance.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it would have been a much harder fight to play if he was fighting Imanov because that man, that would have been a great fight, and I wonder
Yeah,
what the odds would have been for that one. But yeah, I mean, I do think it's better for people who like to parlay because we get one more lock, if you will. So it's
yeah,
another another good opportunity to get a little lock for a leg there. So yeah, I mean, I think it worked out for parlay people, but yeah. Let's see if he finishes guys quick and kind of locks in our leg there. So yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. This is going to be the third fight on the main card. Uh, this is going to be a really fun one. It's going to be Magomed and Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker at light heavyweight. Magomed, obviously 18-1-1, is coming off against that split draw or majority draw, whatever you'd like to call it, against Jan Blachowicz for the championship. Really close fight there. 31 years old, 6'3", 75-inch reach, going up against Johnny Walker, 21-7. 3-2 in his last five. Coming off that unanimous decision win against Anthony Smith, and that was a pretty good decision win. 31 years old, so same age, 6'6", so he's a taller fighter, and he has a longer reach at 82 inches, so 7 inches longer in terms of reach. Odds for this fight, Magomed opened up at minus 500, and surprisingly to me, even it is some people took dog money on that, and Magomed went down to a minus 280 at one point, but now has been since bet to a minus 350. So a little bit more action on Magomed in the last week or so. Um, you know, this fight is I feel like it's a buy low on Magomed and a sell high on Johnny Walker, especially Johnny Walker coming off of let's see who he's beaten, right? He's beaten Ion Cutelaba. I mean, not anybody's kind of definition of a consistent fighter in the UFC. He's beaten Paul Craig, Brazilian jiu-jitsu nerd who likes to pull guard. And if you saw that fight against Paul Craig, that was one of the funniest knockouts I've seen. This guy was just literally hanging on his leg. And Johnny Walker is just fucking hammer fisting him like bitch slapping him on his leg. Going all bad. I mean, I was like, whoa. Like, Johnny Walker looked amazing in that fight. Yeah, Paul Craig. After that fight, I think Paul Craig moved down to middleweight after that because he was like, I can't hang with this guy who's 6'6". This guy was way too big for me to do anything on the ground. And you saw that last fight against Anthony Smith. I mean, that was a pretty decisive decision victory. I feel like Johnny Walker. This is just my feeling. I feel like he bet on himself to win by decision in that fight because he could have finished Anthony Smith like way sooner and like you saw that meme by Anthony Smith saying like I heard you're going for my family or something like that. He made this dude have like PTSD in the fight and I was like God like Anthony Smith looks horrible right now. Like yeah, so I mean Johnny Walker's coming off three straight good wins. I mean, but feel like that's a sell high. I mean, Magomed and Klive, he's just a little bit different, right? I mean, I feel like he's a world-class technical striker, superb championship level kickboxer. I mean, I feel like this is one of those guys that could fight in the glory, right? Where Alex Pereira came from, where Izzy came from, superb technique. I think that he also is pretty well rounded for as good as a striker he is. I mean, he also incorporates takedowns. You saw that in his last fight against Jan, right? Jan was, got kind of getting the better of him on the feet. I mean, but Jan Blachowicz is really good at striking as well, and he really worked in those takedowns, especially after Jan kind of chopped down his legs, right? So he kind of reworked the game plan. Magomed tried to do a little bit more of a takedown grappling game, and it worked against Jan, and it made that a draw in a way. So I think that he has a little bit of everything. I do like that in that 5 round fight, he didn't fade Magomed. So he does have a gas tank, especially for a 205er. Um, I do think that Johnny, even though the odds are like, maybe minus 350, I think Johnny is still a little alive just because I think that when I watched the Magomed versus Thiago Santos in 2022, I watched a little bit of that fight. I think that Thiago actually knocked this guy down. I mean, it wasn't like he did get caught, but still, over the course of those 5 rounds, he still won that fight against Thiago Santos. So I do think that Johnny Walker is dangerous, and he could. I mean, this is a 205er fight. Both of these guys have power. Both of these guys can bang, but I feel like the technique on the feet is just going to be a little bit too much for Magomed. And Johnny Walker, he's been a little bit more measured and controlled in his last few fights, right? He's led to some wins. I feel like he's going to try to do that again against a guy like Magomed, and I don't think it's going to work this time because he could do it to Anthony Smith. He could do it to Ian Kutalaba. He could do it against Paul Craig. Just wait for these guys to do some dumb shit. But I feel like Magomed's just not going to do that like dumb stuff that these last three guys did. So yeah, give me Magomed here. I mean, I think he's a parlay piece for me. I think that this is a buy low because people just have a really bad taste in their mouths. I know Dana White does. I mean, Dana White didn't like that at all. Didn't so it was a draw, and I think that's a buy low. So yeah, give me Magomed here, parlay piece. Alex, what do you think about this fight here?
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think this is, exactly what you said. Buy low on Magomed and Kalaev and sell high on Johnny Walker. Um, yeah, Johnny Walker is just not technically sound compared to Magomed. He has nice calf kicks. He'll throw with power, but it just doesn't look clean. Um, and then I think, like you said, like people don't really like Ankalaev's kind of um, fighting style. He's kind of like low volume. He's very patient with his approach. He likes to wait for kind of opportune times to strike. But when he does strike, he throws some like really nice combinations. At least for me, I was personally a fan. I became a fan of his like that last fight against Jan. Like after him getting his like legs chopped like that, for him to come back and still figure a way out to win.
Hmm.
I think that kind of speaks volumes to his it's kind of like fighting spirit. I think he's gonna do whatever it takes to win. He's a winner. He's a winning fighter, a good fighter to back. So I think he's a parlayable piece as well. I have Ankalaev here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if you look at his record, I mean, he only has one loss, and that one loss was literally like literally to the last second submission where Paul Craig got him in a triangle, right? And he was dominating
Yeah.
that fight on all three judges' scorecards. That would have been like a 30-27 all over the board. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like he's such a technician and, yeah, good parlay piece here. I would not be surprised if the odds get a little bit wider as we get closer to fight day. All right, so we'll have move on to the next fight on the main card. This is going to be the co-main event, and it's actually going to be a changed co-main event because Paulo Costa dropped out. So, but now I feel like we have a much more in my opinion, at least, entertaining, much more riveting fight for the fans. We have Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. You heard that right. Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare, is moving up to 185 on short notice, stepping in to save the main card here, and he's gonna, this is gonna be a really interesting fight. I mean, he's 20-3. 3-2 in his last five. Obviously, the two losses are to Leon Edwards, where he lost the decision last time, got head kick KO'd. The head kick, heard around the world in that first fight for championship there. 36 years old, 6 feet, 76-inch reach, fighting against Khamzat Chimaev, 12-0, 5-0 in his last five, coming off of that Kevin Holland Darce choke. Although that was about a year or so ago. 29 years old, 6'2", 75-inch reach. So Usman does have just a slight reach advantage, but I would say that that's pretty indifferent. He is going to be the taller fighter as far as Khamzat. Odds for this fight are really interesting as well. Khamzat opened at a minus 300, which I think is pretty fair. Now he's kind of been bet to a minus 330. So there was a point though where he got all the way to a minus 400, and that's where I think it might be a little bit disrespectful for the former champ. But yeah, I think minus 330, not too bad so far. I think that's a pretty good kind of odds right there. Um, yeah, I think that this fight's going to be really fun. I think that it's going to end up being the fight of the night, actually, because this is going to be the first time that we're going to see Kamaru Usman at 185, and I've always wondered what he's going to look like when he doesn't have to weight cut and drain himself, when he just kind of focus on fighting. So it's going to be really interesting. Same thing about Khamzat Chimaev, right? I mean, he's also kind of a weight bully who cuts a lot of weight down to 170. So I feel like we're gonna see both these guys at their natural kind of weight. We're gonna see them not drained. We're gonna see a lot of power. We're gonna see some good speed, just some good aggression that we're not kind of used to there. Obviously, Kamaru Usman, probably the one of the greatest fighters of all time in terms of his record and kind of accolades. Probably the second greatest, welterweight of all time. Depending on how Leon's career goes, obviously, right? But like right now, he's probably the second behind George St. Pierre. Really good jab, really piston of a jab. Probably, I still think it's the best jab in that division as far as like speed, power, and all of that. Amazing cardio. I mean, I feel like there's a reason why this guy's name is the CEO of EPO, Marty Juiceman. I mean, I just haven't really seen him tired like ever. Uh, just think about this. He fought in altitude against, Leon Edwards that first fight. And pretty much for all five rounds, this guy was constantly moving forward, pumping out that jab, grappling Leon a little bit. I mean, he has 5 rounds in him for sure. It is going to be a little different though. I believe this is going to be a 3-round fight, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is going to be a 3-round fight, so there's going to be a little different there. It's going to be really interesting to see if, that's going to play into his favor or not at 185. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the accolades of Muhammad, Marty Juzman here. I mean, terrific grappler, terrific wrestler. He has kind of worked on that striking, so I think his striking, even at this point, is on par with his grappling. So it's a really scary fighter to fight against. Um, it's kind of the opposite of the other fight that we mentioned, right? I mean, I feel like this is going to be when it was Hamzat versus Paulo Costa, it was going to be, a lock for, in my opinion, for Hamzat. I feel like just because of that change, now it's one less lock. And although it's going to be a more interesting fight, we have one less lock to play with because, I mean, Khamzat Chimaev, the last time that he fought a legitimate fight, I mean, I don't really count that Kevin Holland fight as a legitimate fight. It was like way too quick and a lot of like weird stuff went around it and how it got made. But in his last fight against Gilbert Burns, who's another top caliber kind of fighter, very close decision. I mean, I could have easily scored it 29-28 Gilbert. I mean, I personally I had Hamzat winning 2 rounds, but you can talk me into saying that Gilbert won 2 rounds there. But I think that this is going to be a little bit different because Hamzat, he isn't going to have to deal with the defensive grappling of Gilbert Burns, right? Gilbert Burns is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners alive. I mean, all time. This guy, it's really hard to sub a guy like that. I mean, I think that Hamzat said that after the fight, the reason why he didn't go back for those takedowns is because he felt Gilbert Burns doing some weird stuff with his hands when he was down there trying to ground and pound. And, one can only imagine, right? I think Gilbert's probably trying to set up either a triangle or armbar down there, and I feel like Hamzat, if he just kept on going at it, he might have got subbed in that fight. So I think that's why he kind of put it on the feet and try to use his power. And although I mean that was still a close fight, so Hamzat, I feel like is going to have better cardio at 185. So is Usman, obviously. So I mean, 3 round fight. I think that favors Hamzat, in my opinion. We're not going to get the CEO of EPO extending to rounds 4 and 5, where I think he could really put on the damage. Um, yeah, we're going to see both grapplers kind of test their takedown defense, right? Because Hamzat hasn't been taken down yet. Usman, 97% takedown defense. I think he's been taken down once by like Leon, uh, and then maybe once by the Colby Covington for a little bit. But I mean, both these guys, terrific kind of grapplers in offense and defense. The one thing that I will say is that I do remember when Leon took down Usman, he did have him in like a back attack kind of deal in that first round, the first fight, right, for the championship. So, you know, could that potentially be Usman's knees, not working anymore, right? Like this guy is really old. I watched the sparring video of him open sparring Justin Gaethje for the fans, right? And we don't know if this is confirmed or not, but it sounded like to me that he said that to Justin that something popped during that open sparring. So I feel like this guy's knees kind of fucked. I mean, I just don't think that he's obviously not in his prime anymore. He's gonna try to rely on that stand up to really push him through for these 3 rounds, kind of like Gilbert Burns did. So, I mean, and I think he's a better striker than Gilbert Burns. So, we'll see there. But yeah, I think I'm fading this. I mean, I feel like Usman, he's coming for the check. I feel like the UFC probably paid him an ungodly amount of money to come and save this co-main event, right? Especially after Costa pulled out. So he's probably doing the UFC a favor here, and they like him. He was a championship. He was championship champion for a long time, and I think that he's doing them a solid, and they're both doing each other a solid here. So Hamzat's going to be the pick. Man, I'm close to saying this is a lock, but I really want to see them face to face in weigh-ins and face-offs to kind of see how their bodies look at 185, right? I know that both of them are going to look really thick, but this is going to be a new experience for everybody. I mean, Hamza hasn't fought at 185 in a while, and Usman hasn't fought at 185 yet. So we need to see what they look like. But for now, I would say Hamza is going to be my pick, and I'll wait for face-offs and weigh-ins to kind of gauge whether I should parlay him because man, Usman's a champion. I mean, even though Leon had kicked the champion out of him, he is still a championship level fighter, and it's hard to put Hamzat at 3-1 odds as a parlay piece just because of that fact. So, pick is Hamzat, but I'll wait a little bit for a little bit more information before I kind of move in. Alex, what do you think about this co-main event here between Usman and Chimaev?
Yeah, I like come shot here.
Let's go.
I think I got him. I think I got him in my lock. To be honest, there are some like obviously some variables that you mentioned, right? Like Khamzat hasn't really fought in middleweight, and then Usman is moving up from welterweight to middleweight. So um, both haven't fought in this weight division, so we don't know how they're going to look. Um, but like I just don't like how I don't like the fashion in which Usman lost his last fight.
Mm,
Um, he looked very washed, like in my eyes.
yeah.
Um, I think Leon Edwards kind of just, took took him apart. And so, moving up a weight class, fighting a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, like this guy's dangerous. He's like a killer, man. It's definitely scary, and I will say though, like you also made a good point, like his last real fight against Gilbert Burns, like that did go to a decision. Um, so that does factor in, but I think like I think this fight's gonna be played out on the feet because
Mhm.
Hamzat is a good wrestler, a good grappler. I honestly think he can out grapple Usman. Um, so I feel like that kind of cancels each other out, and so I feel like this fight is going to be played on the feet. Um, but I think I have Khamzat winning. Kind of fading Usman's last performance, but I definitely agree with your points and not maybe not putting this in a parlay just because he is a champion. He does have real power in his hands, but I think I like Khamzat here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think that whatever happens, it's going to be a really entertaining fight. I mean, I'm going to be watching on it, even if I don't have any money on it, right? This is going to be a kind of a fan's dream in a way. You're seeing a fight that should have probably happened a couple years ago at 170, but now it's happening at 185. So a lot more fireworks and explosions. So yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. So yeah, we'll move on to the main event here. And man, talk about another good, entertaining fight, right? But maybe a little dangerous as far as betting as well. We have Islam Makhachev versus Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Obviously, it's going to be the rematch. Charles Oliveira pulled out about a week or two ago, and they found a replacement with Volk stepping on a short notice, doing a rematch of their first fight. Um, as far as the the fight right here, they're pretty much running it back. I mean, Islam's 24-1, 5-0. Once again, his only loss was that against that Adriano Martins guy. And did you see that? You see that meme about like a lot of people were trying to say that it was Pantoja who did it because like
Uh,
Martins. Oh man, I need to send that to you next. But it was so funny. But yeah, he got knocked out by Martins, and then ever since then he's sharpened up and hasn't lost since. 31 years old, 5'10", 70.5 inch reach. Fighting against Alex Volkanovski, 26-2, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off against the domination against Yair Rodriguez. I mean, he doing whatever he needed to against Yair, just like knocked him out and ground and pound him basically. He did lose against Islam once again in that first fight. 35 years old, so he's the dreaded 35-year-old age there. 5'6", 71.5 inch reach. So just like the first fight, he does have a 1 inch reach advantage. Odds for this fight, really interesting. I mean, Islam opened up at a minus 200, and now he's at a minus 255, 52. I'll pass it to you, Alex. I want to hear your thoughts first before I dive in. What do you think about this main event here that we have?
I think this is going to be a really exciting main event. Like both of these guys are so technically sound, like just
Yeah.
very high level fighters. Um, my pick is going to be Islam. I just think he's too good. Like he's too careful. He's too good. And I think the last fight, Volkanovski fought as well as he could. Like I felt like Volk like fought that match to perfection. I felt like he made zero mistakes really. Um, and like I think if you just compare like the two fighters, like Islam is just way stronger. Like Islam's like a like he wants to like he even said like if he wins this fight he wants to move up to or he wants to fight the winner of Colby and Leon Edwards.
Right.
And so I feel like he really should be a natural welterweight. Um, and you can kind of just see like Islam is definitely like much stronger than Volk. Um, so I really like, and then you add into that like 1 week notice,
Hmm.
um, not having like the preparation that coming off that elbow like surgery, something like that. And he even said he's coming off the couch. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the cards are stacked against Volk here. Um, so I really like Islam. But I will say that like like Volk is amazing. Like this guy's he's an amazing fighter. But I just think Islam he's too. It's not a good matchup. I think so.
Yeah.
I like Islam here.
Definitely. You think Islam's a parlay piece for you?
I think he is, to be honest. Like, I feel like the odds maybe should be wider. I mean, it's funny saying that, like knowing how the first fight went down. Um, but I think Islam just like it's the fact that I think Volk like fought that fight to perfection, and so I don't know if he can replicate that. Plus, like I feel like Islam now has like a chip on his shoulder, right? I feel like people are saying that Volk won the first fight. I mean, that's fine. So I think, he's going to try and like make a statement for this fight. So I think I would add him to my parlays.
Definitely. Yeah, look, I mean, I tried to, kind of dig deep into the rematch again and actually watch it. And, I was actually trying to find reasons to take Volk, right? Just because of how the fight ended. Volk had a lot of highlight moments, even in the loss, if you will, right? I mean, remember when Islam was constantly taking him down, but Volk was never really in any real danger. He was doing the shouting. He was punching him from behind when he was getting backpacked. That's
Yeah.
kind of good for optics, right? Not maybe not in the judges' eyes, but still, like a lot of the crowd was cheering him on. It was in his hometown in Australia, um, and and that's the thing. Like he had a lot of highlights. He was ground and pounding him in the last round. He still lost the fight, though. I mean, I still think that it was a clear 48-47. Um, and that's how most of the scorecards was. I think that it was like two 48-47s and one 49-46, I think. It was something like that. So, I mean, it was still a clear decision for Islam. And when you actually watch the fight, I mean, come on, like Islam, this is the thing. We know that Islam's the better grappler, better wrestler in this case, bigger guy. Just look at his back. Like this guy is much bigger. Crazy grip strength. I mean, like you just if you watch that Charles Oliveira when he finished him, right, man, locked it in. There was like 0% chance of escape. Like it's over. Once he gets you in that grip, like you just have to tap because you just haven't felt that grip in your life before. Like it's a very different grip that they have over there. And even though he's the better grappler wrestler, if you actually look at the stand-up exchanges, aside from that, last round kind of flurry from Volk, Islam was beating him on the feet from what I saw. I mean, he was even a better striker than Volk. So I just think that once again, yeah, like you mentioned, I think this is a bad matchup for Volk. I mean, he's probably outclassed in all areas of the fight. Unfortunately, I think that he's doing the UFC a solid. Once again, I feel like Usman and Volk kind of in the same boat, right? Like former champions or champions that are stepping in to save the card in Abu Dhabi. Because think about this: the backup fighter would have been Mateusz Gamrot. Then, like, I I don't know about that main event. That would have been, man. I don't know that that's a good main event for Abu Dhabi, especially they're trying to get that Saudi money, right? Like that's not something that the people will want to watch. So I think they paid Volk handsomely for this fight. He's stepping in to just kind of save the show uh, off the couch. I mean, yeah, I mean, give me Islam here. I think that this is crazy that this is a buy low. He's actually come off a win. Like he beat this guy already, and the odds were actually closer when they initially came out. He's now, I think the odds before Islam was like a minus 400 or something, right? It was something like even higher. So now he's a minus 200. It's been bet to minus 252. That's insane value for. He might be like the pound for pound best fighter right now in Islam. So I mean, yeah, give me Islam here as far as a parlay piece. Um, I think that this is actually a pretty easy lock in my opinion. And trust me, I tried to find ways to take Volk. And even though that decision that he fought against, Islam the first time, close fight, I still think it was a decisive 48-47. I mean, if you just had, that's just how you score the fight, right? I mean, Islam was getting the better of him on the feet and he was winning the grappling exchanges. I mean, aside from that last round. So that's pretty much it. So, yeah, give me Islam here. I actually don't know if he's gonna knock him out or sub him. I don't think he's gonna sub him because I think Volk is unsubbable. He doesn't have a neck, so he doesn't have that neck for you to kind of do a rear naked choke or a gilly or anything. It's probably going to have to be some kind of arm bar or like knee bar or something. But still, I think that I could easily see Islam making a statement, taking him down, actually trying to ground and pounding this dude now, or just holding on to him again for like 25 minutes and getting a decision. So I think KO or decision could be in play if you want to play a prop, but I'll just put minus 252 money line and get myself a good parlay piece right there. Yeah, so that pretty much does it for the whole card. I once again, I mean, I think that throughout this card, right, we said a lot of locks and giga locks, a lot of parlayable pieces. So I think that this is going to be the event. If you've been holding on to your units last few weeks, I think this is the time to kind of let them fly in a way. Put a lot of locks in there. I think that you're going to get some good ROI, a lot of plus EV spots that you can kind of stack up and really get some good juice odds. So we'll move on to the final portion of the breakdown. Obviously, this could change depending on weigh-ins, depending on face-offs, whatever you think is the best kind of indicators as you get more information throughout the week. But just right now, at this moment of the video, what kind of parlays or what kind of plays are you thinking that could be good to kind of put in right now and lock it down? Right now.
So at least for me, I really like the first fight, Magomedov, the bullet
Yep.
inside the distance. I think that's a very good straight bet at like even odds, pretty much. Um, that's one. And I kind of like. I also kind of like Khamzat to win inside the distance.
Mm.
I think with his fighting style, how aggressive he is, um, I could definitely see a finish there. So that's another straight bet. Um, and then in terms of a third straight prop bet I like is of course the Javid Basharat by decision.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's another good like entry point. And then in terms of parlays, one that I personally feel pretty confident about is Nathaniel Wood, Javid Basharat, um, Ikram, um, and Islam. I think I think those four, and you can even add the bullet as a fifth leg or Hamzat as your fifth leg. But personally, I'm going with those four just because I'm thinking of doing the straight bets with Hamzat
Okay.
as well as the bullet. So kind of want to, mix up my exposure. But
Yep.
I think I'm pretty confident in those picks, and I think those are good entry points for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just for reference, that four-legger that you mentioned, Islam, Ikram, Javid, and Nathaniel Wood, plus 150 right now. So yeah, I mean, I actually like a four-leg parlay plus 150. That could be a one where you put 5 units on it. Honestly, like that, I
Yeah,
really like that play. Yeah, so that's a good one for sure. And yeah, your straight bets as well. All of them are a little juiced in terms of the straight bets, but still, like you mentioned, I do think they're good entry points because Shara inside the distance against a shinny Bruno Silva, low IQ Bruno Silva. That's
yeah,
good. Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, this guy tries to finish every fight that I've seen him. At least, I mean, he even
yeah,
himself, he almost got finished by Burns trying to get that finish. So, yeah, and Kamaru Usman. I mean, I feel like that's gonna be a fireworks kind of banger. Javi Basharat, obviously, Mr. Consistent. He always kind of goes in with the game plan, so the points could be there. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean that's your parlay. For me, and what I got going on right now. Um, as far as a parlay, I really like Islam, obviously. Give me Magomed and Klive. I think that's a buy low. Uh, I really want to put Mokaev there, but I feel like Tim Elliott is a little dangerous. So I'm going to stay away until weigh-ins there. This is just for the pre-weigh-ins and face-off, by the way. So people that I'm like really confident. Um, yeah, so Islam, Magomed. I think Shara is someone that I am confident in. I mean, just look at the dude. I feel like Bruno Silva might be on his way out. So yeah, give me that. That's a third leg. And I really also want to go for a 2.5 on a girls fight. So let me add in Jinh Frey and Victoria Dudakova over 2.5 at minus 230 for my fourth leg there. So in that four leg parlay, it's a plus 251 right now. So not bad.
Damn.
We have Islam, Magomed, Shara, and over 2.5 on Jinh Frey and Victoria Dudakova plus 251. I think that's a solid one to put 2 units or so there. I think that that's an easy one to actually put 2 units there. So for now, that'll probably be my parlay. As far as straight bets, I mean, I do like some of the plus odds that I see. I mean, Mohammad Mokaev, I probably don't want to play him as a parlay, but I really feel like this fight's going to end in submission somehow, either by either fighter, and more likely it's
Yeah.
going to end up in submission by Mokaev. So give me plus 140 on the submission. I really like that. Um, and yeah, I mean, I feel like for now, that's probably the most that I'll go, and I'll look at the weigh-ins and face-offs going forward and seeing, what kind of information, data points we can gather. But for now, I'll probably have that parlay and that straight bet as far as my best bets for now. Awesome. So, yeah, man, I'm glad we did this. We broke down the card in a pretty efficient manner, pretty digestible way for our viewers. So I hope everyone enjoys it. Please like, comment, and subscribe to Pure Picks. We're trying to really build the brand here, trying to get the inflow of, viewers, subscribers, commenters. So please try to engage with the community. We really want to see it. And everyone have best of luck. We're gonna have a best video later on this week with Gerard, and we'll go over his best bets. But for now, we'll wrap it up. Alex, you have any last thoughts on the card? Anything at all before we wrap up?
No, just that I'm really looking forward to this card, and I really think we're gonna make some money this weekend. So uh, let's
Yeah,
get it.
let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Yeah, best of luck to everyone. We'll see you later for best bets. And yeah, just enjoy the show at 7 a.m. for the prelims Pacific Standard Time on Saturday. We're out.